Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to our first official webinar on RARE, a registry for acral and mucosal melanoma patients. I'd also like to mention that this webinar is being recorded so that those who could not join live will be able to view it on our YouTube channel or through other blog posts that we will be issuing. So I am Joan Levy. I am Chief Science Officer at the Melanoma Research Alliance. And for those of you who are not familiar with the MRA, we are the largest private nonprofit funder of melanoma research worldwide. We've invested over 150 million to support more than 450 grants given to investigators in 19 countries. But today, in this webinar, we'll be discussing another type of project that the MRA has recently embarked on with the inspiration from patients and caregivers with acral and mucosal melanoma, namely our RARE registry. Now, just to review the different types of melanoma, we might be more familiar with the more common type of melanoma, cutaneous melanoma, that occurs on the sun-exposed surface of the skin. It's presumed to be due to exposure to ultraviolet light from either sunlight or tanning beds, et cetera, and represents about 90% of all melanomas diagnosed. The remaining 10% of melanomas are comprised of three rare subtypes of melanoma: acral melanoma, which occurs on the palms of the hands, soles of the feet, and in the nail beds; mucosal melanoma, that occurs on the mucosal linings of different tissues in our body; and uveal melanoma, which is melanoma of the eye. Now, these do represent about 10% of melanomas that are diagnosed. They're generally diagnosed at more advanced stages of the disease. Unfortunately, they're not as responsive to approved immune and other types of therapies. So there is a huge unmet need to try to find new therapeutics to help manage the diseases. And even though they are found in all races, acral and mucosal melanomas are disproportionately found higher in people of color. So the registry that we're going to discuss is to support the rare melanomas, acral and mucosal melanoma, really to help advance research. The reason why we haven't included uveal, which I just mentioned, is that there are 3 existing registries already in uveal melanoma that are ongoing and that we help promote. So the agenda for the webinar today is to really provide you with a background of the RARE registry. Very briefly, the RARE registry is sponsored by the MRA with the support of a strong patient and caregiver advisory board, as well as medical advisory board. We will then move into, once you consent to being part of the registry, how you navigate your dashboard and enter information and also see emerging results. And then we will finally give data updates on the first 100 patients that have been registered, that have consented and are part of the registry. And I just want to say to the participants in the registry, we are so grateful to those who have enrolled because they really are helping advance research in these rare subtypes of melanoma. Now, as to not violate anyone's privacy, we will not be turning on webinar participants' microphones or cameras. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or question answers part of this webinar, and we will address them at the end of the webinar. So I'd like to introduce the RARE registry team at the Melanoma Research Alliance. It includes myself, Dr. Rachel Fisher, who is our Associate Director, not only for our scientific program, but for the RARE registry; Cody Barnett, who is MRA's Senior Director of Communications and Patient Engagement, and provides us with a lot of the communications material to really help advance this registry forward. And then 2 amazing science interns, Nico Starink and Virain Segal, who have provided us enormous amounts of their time to help open the registry and then continue to make sure it's running smoothly. So I'm just going to go in now with a little background of the registry. Basically, the way this registry started was a group of patients and caregivers with acral and mucosal melanoma approached the MRA about 3 years ago and really presented an idea that a direct-to-patient registry where patients would be able to record their journeys with acral and mucosal melanoma could really help advance research with these two rare subtypes. And they recognized and felt they couldn't do this on their own and asked if the MRA could help support it. And what we did was take on this project with the guidance of a very strong patient advisory committee, as well as a medical advisory committee, to advance this program forward and to be able to open the registry. So the registry is really designed by patients, and it's for patients. And it's to collect data from patients with acral and mucosal melanoma via an online website that you'll see that Rachel will present in a few minutes. Now, the one thing I want to point out here, even though it's primarily focused on acral and mucosal melanoma patients with the more common subtype of melanoma, cutaneous melanoma, can also be joined because we will be using data emerging that's accumulated through cutaneous melanoma patient participants as a comparator arm for the registry. Now, the purpose of the registry is really to help advance research, medical treatments, and quality of life for patients with acral and mucosal melanoma. It was officially launched last October, and then there was an even bigger launch in May during Melanoma and Skin Cancer Awareness Month. And I'm proud to say we have over 100 participants who were very grateful again for joining. And as you will see, emerging de-identified data, meaning data that's stripped of all personal identifiers, is being shared with participants and will also be shared with researchers so that they could use this data and develop hypotheses and potentially identify better treatments and help manage the disease in a more efficient way. So we're actually developing a separate portal for researchers to be able to see this de-identified data. So what types of data are we actually collecting? We're collecting patient-reported information in the form of surveys. So once a participant consents to being in the registry, they will come to a dashboard that Rachel will show in a few minutes, and then start filling out surveys. And the surveys will include demographic information, disease history, if they've had any genetics or biomarker testing, how they are monitored through their journey, what their quality of life is, and overall health, and then they'll be asked to fill in a treatment history timeline. Participants also have the ability to upload any medical reports to their dashboard. And these medical reports could be pathology reports, genomic reports, surgical reports that they can receive from their doctors or get from their hospital portals. And in the future, we will also be adding some additional features, namely patients will be able to consent to actually share their electronic medical records with us so we could pull out more clinical data. And we even will have a biorepository to collect participant tumor samples that we will share with researchers worldwide to be able to really characterize molecular features of these tumors and associate them with clinical and patient-reported data. So at this point, I'd like to pass the webinar over to Rachel, and she's going to explain how the data is collected and features on a participant's dashboard. Rachel?
Thanks, Joan. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I'm really excited to walk you through the registry and share some exciting new data updates. So just wanted to take a few minutes to walk you through your participant dashboard, or if you haven't joined yet, what it might look like, what features would be available to you. So this is the dashboard you would see when you log in as a Rare participant. Like Joan mentioned, there's two ways right now for you to share your data. The first is completing surveys, and the second is uploading medical reports. So the first thing you'll see when you log in are your surveys. You can click on the name of any of the surveys here, and you'll be brought to a form where you can answer questions. You can click on this home button on the top left of the screen at any time. There's a drop-down list here. If you ever need to navigate back to where your surveys are, this is where you can find them. You can also click on the second button here to manage your medical reports. So clicking on that button will bring you to this page, and this is where you can upload your medical reports. Like Joan mentioned, these types of reports would be things like genetic testing, surgery, radiology, or pathology reports. You may have gotten an email from your clinician about this, or you may have found them on your online patient portal. If you haven't been able to download these reports from your portal, you can actually request from your doctor that they send you these reports. And if you ever have any questions about how to find them or how to upload them, please feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to walk you through this process. So you can click on the button here on the page that says Upload Medical Reports. And there's a short form here with a few questions and a button here for you to upload your report. At the bottom of the page, you just click on Upload Your Medical Report, and that will save anything that you've uploaded here to a secure HIPAA-compliant database. It's only accessible from trained staff, so you don't have to worry about any of your medical information from these reports being accessed. This is a really great way to supplement all that patient-reported information that you've entered in your surveys. So back on the homepage, this registry isn't just about you sharing your data with researchers and with us, it's about us sharing this information back to you. We really want you to be able to see all of the progress that you're contributing to. So we have two really exciting features to share some of the data and some of the emerging research back with you. So right here at the top of your page, you can see in this red box, there's two new features called Data Insights and How I Compare. If you click on the Data Insights page, there's a drop down here with 4 different pages. We've put together some curated graphs sharing information on participant demographics, their diagnosis journey, and a page specific to each acral and mucosal with some exciting data specific to those types of melanoma. If you want to dive a little bit deeper into the data and go question by question through the survey, you can click on the How I Compare tab. You can look at each page of the survey and go through questions that have multiple choice answers and see what your answer was and how that compares to other participants. The graphs are really interactive. There's a lot of data on this page. So if you like getting in there and playing around with the data a bit, you might love this feature. It's a really great way to explore some of the exciting new trends. And we're really excited to always be sharing new features with you. If you have any feedback for us on things you'd like to see or ways to build this community, please always feel free to reach out. We really want this to be a great space for you. And please feel free to explore the homepage here. There's some other tabs you can explore. The online community tab will take you to the Melanoma Exchange. Some of you may be familiar with this. It's an online patient community where you can interact with other patients, ask questions, build your community. We have the Rare blog there. We'll be posting articles, invitations to webinars like this, clinical trial alerts, lots of great info there. So always check that out. And there's a tab for frequently asked questions. If you don't find your answer there, again, please always feel free to reach out to us at rare@curemelanoma.org. We're happy to answer any questions you have. So now I'm excited. I'll pass things over to Nico, and he'll walk you through some of the exciting new data that we have.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, like Rachel said, I'm going to be going over some of the data insights that Rachel just mentioned how to view on the homepage. So this is the data from the first 100 or so participants. It currently shows the distribution of rare participants by their melanoma diagnosis. And as the registry grows, we're aiming to have an even split between all 3 types, acral, mucosal, and cutaneous. This will make it easier to analyze and compare between the types. And we can additionally use the cutaneous melanoma as a control arm since we do know a lot more about it overall. So while RARE is an international registry that currently has participants in the UK, Canada, and Australia, we are currently predominantly located in the US. So this map shows a distribution of registry participants. We are already active in over half the states. California is currently the state with the highest active RARE registry participants. We are planning to expand internationally in the coming months. This will include additional language support for the RARE registry site, so you can view it in Spanish as well as English. Next set of data, is the demographics of RARE participants. So currently we have around 3/4 of our participants are female, with 92% of participants reported working or having mainly worked in an indoor setting. These statistics will help us to analyze potential risk factors with melanoma subtypes such as acral and mucosal. Some additional RARE demographics are they're currently English speaking and predominantly white. Like with most cancers, there exist disparities in melanoma incidence and mortality that does vary widely between ethnic and racial groups. We will be accounting for this by assuring that as the registry grows, it reflects an accurate representation of individuals that is supported by the latest in melanoma research. Here we can see the wide range of education level between the RARE participants. So it is currently a little skewed towards higher education, with bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degree having a large percentage. But this information is still very useful as researchers gain access to de-identified data they can control for education level, which is oftentimes a very common control. The next series of graphs shows the patient's diagnosis journey. It's important to remember that these are not separated by melanoma subtypes. So like I explained in the beginning, we have around 75% of the RARE registry is currently mucosal melanoma participants. So that has to be viewed in these graphs. The first one, family history of melanoma, can be used to sort of identify whether family history is important for melanoma subtypes. The next graph, did the patient feel that they were diagnosed in a timely manner, is an interesting one to look at because it is currently only reflects what the patient thinks. So if the patient had the exact same diagnosis timeline, they could have different responses to this. This is still important because how the patient feels about the diagnosis journey can have a tangible impact overall. So that's something that is quite interesting that comes out of our RARE survey questions. And the final two graphs I'll be sharing with you are the pre-existing chronic illnesses before the melanoma diagnosis. Again, it can help to analyze risk factors. And finally, current disease status. This is at the time of enrolling in the RARE registry. Currently, we have slightly over half of individuals with no evidence of disease.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is Cody Barnett, and I'm just going to quickly overview some of the ways that we're using to try to raise awareness of the RARE registry. So I'm hoping that many of you have already seen our social media posts about the registry. So there's a lot of different kind of infographic style and testimonials from our patient and clinical advisors. We're also doing a lot of press outreach and have already coverage from publications including today.com, Checkmate, and as well as Patient Worthy. And then we're also starting some targeted outreach. And this is going to be really important to helping us achieve some of our diversity and equity goals for enrollment, to really make sure that the RARE registry participants actually reflect the true community of people who are impacted by both acral and mucosal melanoma. We're also actively pursuing a registry-wide translation. And what this means is not only will the surveys be translated by someone who fluently speaks Spanish and is regularly involved with kind of this medical terminology that we're using, but so will all of the other support pages on the RARE website. So we're really trying to create a really fantastic experience for our participants who speak Spanish as their primary language. In the future, we're actively working with our institutional review board, so that is the group that makes sure that everything that we do as the MRA team, as the clinical advisors and the patient leadership that are all working towards this, they're really making sure that everything that we do is safe for all of our participants. And every piece of collateral, every survey has to be approved by this group called an institutional review board. And we're working with them right now to really come up with what is the best solution for an informational one-pager about acral melanoma and mucosal melanoma that doctors can hand out at their offices, as well as updates to our rare registry postcards so that it can better reflect the fact that it has in fact been IRB approved. So as we work through these, we'll soon be making them more available to you. So if you have events or tabling activities that you're doing in your own community and would like to have information about rare, let us know. So my email address is on the screen. You can always access us at rare@curemelanoma.org and let us know, and we can get you materials so that you can make rare more present and available in your own community. The final thing that I always like to mention is that we're always looking for folks who are interested in sharing their story with the melanoma community more broadly. This is done through a really kind of structured interview process with myself or someone else on our team. And we really want to hear from you. What was your experience dealing with your melanoma? What were some of the questions that you had? How did you feel at various points? And what we found is that these are a really powerful way to help other people who are maybe just starting out with their own journey with melanoma. So if this is something that you're interested in doing, know that the community is interested in reading it. And we highly encourage you to reach out to us, and we'd love to get you started on actually sharing that story with the broader community. And thank you again, and really excited about the fantastic participation that we're seeing already.
Yeah, so I want to thank my team at MRA for putting on this webinar and providing this valuable information to participants and to the public. I also want to again acknowledge participants who join RARE as to how appreciative we and the research community are for you joining and filling out the surveys and uploading your medical reports. We can take questions now that have been entered in the chat or the question and answer tab. But as we mentioned before, if you have any additional questions, please email us at rare@curemelanoma.org. So Rachel, would you like to start off with the question answer?
Yeah, we've got a few questions coming in here. Thanks everyone for posting. So one question is, how will participants be notified when there are new surveys to complete or features added? So I can go ahead and answer that. You will get email notifications from us if there is a new survey or if there's a new feature. And if it's a really exciting new feature, we'll host webinars like this to walk you through it. So please always be checking for emails from us. We'll send anything on about those.
So I'll take another question, which is mucosal melanoma is more prevalent in the Asian countries. Any reaching out to Asian communities or Asian countries? We definitely, this is starting out in the US at first. So we are we will be trying to reach out to different communities such as Asian communities. And ultimately we will expand internationally and, would love to include different Asian countries. And we'll get the Rare Registry website, as Cody described, in Spanish, translated into the appropriate languages to include these participants.
So there is a question about why the data, why we have so many more women compared to men participating in the Rare Registry right now. This is something that is actually a trend seen across all programs like this. It also is very likely attributable to MRA's own distribution channels. So for example, I mentioned that we're using a lot of social media to raise awareness of the Rare Registry. Our social channels tend to skew also to women. So this is something that we're very aware of and that we'll continue to try to address in some of our more targeted outreach efforts as we continue to roll out the Rare Registry. But that's a great question. Thank you.
I can add to that one as well, because it's predominantly mucosal melanoma. Mucosal melanoma is known to be diagnosed more in women than men, just because it also occurs in the vagina and vulva. So that data alone will skew it, and because that is the most prominent type we have currently, that'll obviously skew it. It's also only 100 participants right now, so as we scale up, the data should normalize.
So maybe Cody or Nico, you could answer the last question, which is any clues why participation is skewing so high in college level educations? And I think this has been found in other registries as well. Any additional points to make?
Yeah. So I think part of all of these numbers that we need to keep in mind is that we're still very early on in the recruitment process. So we expect some of these weird numbers or imbalances in terms of various categories are likely due just to kind of the network effects. So we outreach to people who are already close to MRA. And those tend to be folks who are college educated, who are very connected into the melanoma research community. But again, we hope to really see these things all normalize so that the registry participants look as closely like the total population of people impacted by acral, mucosal, and cutaneous melanoma as possible as time goes on.
Yeah, and just one question that I sometimes get asked that actually Nico helped clarify when he showed one of his graphs was, is the registry limited to certain patients at certain stages of their disease? And the answer to that is no, it's not for newly diagnosed or in remission or relapse. It's for patients at any stage of their disease. And Nico showed some data that said about 50% of the participants were actually in remission with no evidence of disease. But again, it's open to patients who are at any stage of their melanoma journey. Any other points Team MRA would like to address at this point?
We had one question asking how many participants we've had to date. As of today, we have 135 participants, which is fantastic. We're so excited about that, and thank you all for joining and for sharing your data. It really means so much.
Yeah, and someone actually sent me a direct message asking about what are some of the strategies that we're going to use to enroll more acral melanoma patients, as well as folks with cutaneous melanoma. So that's a really great question. So as with anything, as we've been kind of onboarding and really ramping up for a launch of the program, that's where most of our efforts really were focused on. And now that we've seen how the data is starting to settle out, and we're noticing that there are a lot more mucosal melanoma participants who have a history of mucosal melanoma enrolling, we're now going to be able to really focus our efforts on making sure that we're kind of addressing it and fixing some of these kind of data imbalances. So for example, we'll be doing a lot more outreach within various online support groups for acral melanoma, as well as targeting some of our targeted outreach. So for example, we're in conversations with some clinicians and medical centers who see a disproportionate number of patients with acral melanoma to help us address some of those gaps. As for cutaneous melanoma patients, that has been an area that we've purposefully not really outreached or advertised to yet, just because the numbers and the percentages of patients who've been impacted by cutaneous melanoma is so much higher that we expect that we'll be able to quickly ramp up enrollment in that group once we begin those outreach efforts. Anything, Joan, that you'd want to add there?
No, I think you covered it all. We are doing very active acral melanoma. We are doing very active outreach to different clinicians in hospitals across the country that are seeing a disproportionately higher number of patients with this type of melanoma, and actually working on with Cody, working on specific material, and communications that we can, and translating the communications into Spanish ultimately to really help ramp up the number of acral melanoma patients and make sure that it represents the true ethnic and racial diversity of this disease. So anyway, if there are no other questions, I'm going to close the webinar by thanking my colleagues, Rachel, Cody, and Nico, for their presentations today, thanking everyone who's attending, all the participants of RARE, again, very grateful, and mentioning that this will be enduring, this webinar will be enduring material, will appear on our YouTube channel and be distributed through social media. So please feel free to distribute this webinar to people who you feel interested. So thank you very much and have a good day.